Everyone around us on medium, except Hamilton on hard.
That's a weird choice from Lewis.
Pierre Gasly starting from the pit lane. I'm trying to find exactly what's going on there, but it is 2 o'clock. It's time to go racing.
Certainly is. The car's pulling away. Max Verstappen at the head of the field. It was a mechanical problem that the AlphaTauri squad found on the way to the grid for Tsunoda, and Pierre Gasly, after his car getting rebuilt yesterday, was not happy with his car on the way to the grid. Now, he was meant to start from the pit lane anyway, we believe, don't we? So I think that's kind of normal. But Tsunoda, they found a mechanical problem on the way to the grid. We'll see whether he leaves the pit lane. So pole position will be Max Verstappen. Second will be Daniel Ricciardo. Third, Lando Norris. Fourth, Lewis Hamilton. Fifth, Charles Leclerc. Sainz, Giovinazzi, Perez, Stroll and Alonso, the top 10. Vettel, Ocon, Latifi, Russell, the top 14. Then Mazepin, Kubica, Schumacher and Bottas, the 18 drivers that will start on the grid for this 53-lap Italian Grand Prix. Very quick average speed here, and Grand Prix are done on a distance measurement, so therefore it's quite a quick Grand Prix, about an hour and 20 minutes, I would expect, if there's no safety cars. And strategy, Jolie and Palmer, it's an interesting move from Hamilton. He's on the hard tyre. Everybody else in the field, apart from Robert Kubica in 17th and Valtteri Bottas in 19th, are on the medium, so he's trying to do something different in order to win this Grand Prix.
He has the fastest car, let's not forget that. He was so despondent after the sprint yesterday, fell from second to fourth, effectively fifth, but Bottas starts from the back of the field, his teammate, with that engine penalty. And he was just saying it's an easy win for Max now, that's it, we're done. And you just thought they've got to do something different. He's got to get clear air, and then he can use the pace of the Mercedes. That's why he's on the hard tyre. Charles Leclerc thinks it's an interesting choice. He lines up alongside him, and is going to have a chance to pass him at the start, because Leclerc on the mediums from fifth should have more grip off the line. But it's all about, for Lewis Hamilton, getting cleanly through those first few corners, try not to lose a place, and then knuckle down for a long first stint and go racing at the end with the McLarens, and then hopefully for him, Max Verstappen.
Yuki Tsunoda is not going to start this Grand Prix, so the AlphaTauri remains in the pit lane. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, just looking at those McLarens, those are the guys to keep an eye out on. Ricciardo starting in P2, Norris in P3. Norris has never won a Formula One race. He's desperate to convert today, and they are going to be trying to get off the line and overtake Verstappen. That's their game plan.
Leeds versus Liverpool, the 4:30 kickoff later on today at Elland Road. We'll keep you up to date with Forest versus Cardiff City, Nottingham Forest versus Cardiff City, which is getting underway in half an hour's time. And we've got Ian Carter at the PGA Championships at Wentworth, and then, of course, the men's US Open final coming up tonight at 9 o'clock. Russell Fuller bringing you all the action from Flushing Meadows. But right now here on BBC Radio 5 Live, it's going to be the Italian Grand Prix, and leading the championship by 5 points is Max Verstappen. He is starting this Grand Prix on pole position in the Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton is fourth on the grid in the Mercedes. He's got a long afternoon ahead of him if he wants to try and make progress, and the start is an opportunity to gain a little bit of ground. The green flag is waved at the back of the grid. The Italian Grand Prix about to get underway. Verstappen is on pole position. The lights go out very quickly, and Verstappen gets away pretty nicely. Hamilton immediately has to defend from the Ferraris, and into the lead goes Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren gets ahead of Max Verstappen, his former teammate, and takes the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. And Hamilton is going to get up into third here. Goes round the outside of Lando Norris. So all of a sudden, from Verstappen in first and Hamilton fourth, it's now Verstappen second and Hamilton third. The two championship contenders are up right together, and they're going to go wheel to wheel, coming down to the Roger chicane. Hamilton goes to the outside, tries to go all the way around the outside. They bang wheels. Hamilton cuts across the grass, and he loses out of place to Lando Norris. Antonio Giovinazzi's been sent spinning in the back. The Alfa Romeo is sideways and has lost his front wing, and Hamilton has dropped back behind Lando Norris now. So Ricciardo leads in the McLaren. Verstappen is second in the Red Bull. Norris is third in the McLaren. Fourth is Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes as they come charging down to the Ascari chicane. Hamilton went for it. Hamilton was bold, but he's lost a place, Jolyon Palmer.
What a dramatic start. We thought Hamilton would be dropping back maybe on those hard tyres, but he got really a good enough start into turn one. Round the outside of Norris, who was a little bit bulked by Verstappen through turn one. Ricciardo was through, clean up the inside. He had a brilliant start and is in the lead. But then Hamilton got the run, not only around Norris at turn two, but then on Max Verstappen side by side into the second chicane. Hamilton trying to go around the outside. Verstappen basically saying no, went in super deep and didn't give him a chance. And with that...
That's pushed me wide.
Copy.
Hamilton complaining that he was pushed wide by Verstappen. I'm not sure that's entirely true. I mean, it's true, but I don't think it was unfair.
He was, but there's nothing in that. It's just hard racing, and Hamilton wasn't far enough alongside to force the issue there. And that meant that Lando Norris has come back through into third place because Lewis was bouncing over the curbs.
Check if I have a puncture. Giovinazzi have been a kamikaze.
So everything is fine and K2 off.
So that's Charles Leclerc complaining because Antonio Giovinazzi basically chopped across the front. Well, I think it was more Carlos Sainz he chopped across the front of, and then Sainz put Giovinazzi into the wall. He's returned to the pits. We've had a virtual safety car. Ricciardo leading, and actually Hamilton's lost quite a bit of ground under that virtual safety car. Everybody basically has to slow to a speed limit pretty much, and then the racing gets going again. Antonio Giovinazzi is struggling to get away from his pit box. He does so now, but Ricciardo leads. He's 1.8 seconds ahead of Verstappen, who's 2 seconds ahead of Norris, who is also 2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. There is a goal at Kingsmeadow. Flo Pollock.
Chelsea have scored their third. It's a Sam Kerr bullet header. Game over for Everton, really. It's Chelsea 3, Everton 0.
Thank you very much. That was a 12:30 kickoff, so approaching the end of that game in the Women's Super League. Lap 2 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and it is Ricciardo leading. What a great start from the McLaren driver. And Hamilton, was he too aggressive on Verstappen going into the chicane? Did he need to just settle in behind his title rival rather than trying to take the fight to him?
It was shades of Hamilton-Vettel 2018, wasn't it, when Lewis went right round the outside of the Ferrari then, and Vettel was ending up spinning, and it was huge for the championship fight then. Problem was, Hamilton wasn't far enough alongside Max Verstappen, and so it was one he was never going to make it through there, and yeah, he should have backed out of it sooner. The start for Hamilton is not disastrous, though, mainly because he's on those hard tyres. He wouldn't have expected really to gain. Anything more was a bonus. The crucial thing is Verstappen is not going to disappear at this stage because he's lost the lead. He's going to be all bunched up behind Ricciardo. So there's going to be that window for Hamilton to basically be in the mix at the end of this Grand Prix when he goes for a set of presumably mediums on that second stint. He's still going to be right in the mix there.
McLaren running first and third now, Jenny.
Yeah, great job for them. Their team boss said he was a bit nervous going into this, and I don't often hear a team boss saying they're nervous, but Ricciardo's done exactly what the mission was. Get out in front, and they reckon that they can stay there. They've got a really good chance of being able to convert this because it's so difficult to overtake. So until they get to the pit stop area around laps 17 to 25, they've just got to hold tight.
Another goal at Kingsmeadow, Flo.
Yes, Chelsea aren't letting up. It's 4. Erin Cuthbert's strike thundered off the bar and then rebounded in off Bethany England for her first touch of the game. It's Chelsea 4, Everton 0.
Wow, quite the route there. So, Daniel Ricciardo leading this Grand Prix, 0.7 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Norris is third, Hamilton is fourth. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, the two Ferraris, are in 5th and 6th. The other Red Bull of Sergio Perez is in 7th place. 8th is Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. 9th and 10th are the two Alpines of Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. George Russell is 13th. Valtteri Bottas has got up to 14th already, which is quite decent progress from having started in 18th spot. And we'll see whether Verstappen is able to attack or get close to Daniel Ricciardo in the lead of the Grand Prix. Great to see Ricciardo up at the front. He was expected to do great things when he went to McLaren at the start of this year. Has really struggled against his teammate Lando Norris, but is now leading the Italian Grand Prix.
Where's he been all season?
Yeah.
He's been hiding, hasn't got used to that McLaren, hasn't been able to extract the Ricciardo pace that he's shown at every team he's been with. But finally, with the help of the sprint this weekend, remember he qualified behind Lando Norris for the sprint yesterday. With the help of that, he had one good start, second good start, and he's in the lead, but big pressure here.
Yeah, Max Verstappen is very close. They come into the Curva Alboreto, the final corner on the circuit. Swinging through that right-hand turn and then out over the start-finish straight. Verstappen will be able to open the flap in his rear wing, the DRS, the drag reduction system, and try and close in a little on Ricciardo, but he's going to be too far back this time, I think, coming down into the first corner, because the McLarens are notably very quick on the straights. So Ricciardo still leading the Grand Prix, Jenny.
Yeah, and Daniel Ricciardo said that summer break came at exactly the right time for him. He came back from that break in August feeling refreshed and much more confident in the car. He said it just all came together for him, and he's hoping that this form can continue for the rest of the season.
Pierre Gasly has retired from the Grand Prix, started from the pit lane after a crash yesterday, but is now out of the race. He wasn't happy with the car on the way to the grid. But yeah, Ricciardo, he's got a long time to hold on and hold off Max Verstappen in for the lead of the Grand Prix, but this would be a great performance.
Those McLarens are not easy to overtake. Lewis Hamilton spent 18 laps of a sprint yesterday chasing down Lando Norris, and he couldn't make it through. He's back behind Norris now. The top two have just separated slightly from third and fourth, so we've got a McLaren holding back Verstappen, then we've got a second McLaren holding back Hamilton, but they're difficult to pass, so it's going to be getting as close as you can at the position they're at now, coming out of Ascari corner. Then there's a long drag up to the curve at the Alboreto, the final corner. Then there's the longest straight, but you're not getting huge slipstreams around this circuit. The low downforce approach means that the cars are punching a smaller hole through the air, and basically being tucked in behind another one isn't as beneficial as it is on many other circuits.
The last time McLaren won a Grand Prix was the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix, which Jenson Button took the victory in. Hamilton was actually fighting for the lead of that race with Nico Hülkenberg before a collision, and that wiped Hamilton out. But that was the last time McLaren won a race. They are leading here, but only by 6 or 7 tenths of a second. Hamilton is within half a second of Lando Norris, but that's kind of as he was for the whole of the sprint yesterday, for yesterday's 18 laps. And being on the hard tyre, well, it's kind of almost disadvantageous now, presumably, because he's not actually on the tyre that he would want to be, given the position he's in now.
No, but this is exactly the position they thought they'd be in, and that's why they chose the hard tyre. Not much has changed in Hamilton's race. He's where he qualified, with the person he qualified behind just ahead. What's changed is Verstappen is not winning. So for Lewis still, he's playing to plan A at the moment, go long and have a really racy second half and try and do some overtaking.
Really hard to get close.
Yeah, understood. They just have to wait for an opportunity.
Music to Hamilton's ears, that, and Mercedes, they'll be across that.
That was Max Verstappen.
What they don't need is Verstappen to clear Daniel Ricciardo and take the lead. Then he's going to be clearing off up the road, and that's going to be the win gone for Hamilton in fourth. But so long as Ricciardo's ahead of Verstappen and stopping him use that Red Bull pace, then Hamilton's still in the mix for the Grand Prix win. And of course, Ricciardo's gunning for this win. This is huge for McLaren as well. Let's not forget that. It's not just about Verstappen v Hamilton. Ricciardo's going to be doing everything he can to hold Verstappen back. They're on the same strategy. On the mediums, there's one stop we're going to see at some point. Ricciardo's and McLaren, they've got to prevent the undercut happening, so they've got to preempt the pit stop of Red Bull at some stage. It's going to be that's their fight, is to win this Grand Prix as well.
McLaren are fighting Ferrari for third in the Teams Championship, and this would, well, the first and third would obviously be a great haul of points for them. Ferrari currently running in 5th and 6th, and you get a whole load more cash if you finish in third, as opposed to 4th, which would be very important for the McLaren team. And they are running 1st and 3rd at the moment. 9 tenths of a second, the gap between Ricciardo and Verstappen. Hamilton is still there, still chasing down Lando Norris in the other papaya orange McLaren, coming into the Ascari chicane, named after the Italian world champion in the 1950s. Won the Italian Grand Prix here, did Alberto Ascari. And now they come down towards the Curva Alboreto, the final corner on the track. Ricciardo leading, then Verstappen, who's dropped a second and a half back from Ricciardo now, then a gap back to Norris and Hamilton.
That Giovinazzi-Sainz incident was under investigation, and you know what it reminded me of? Vettel in Montreal 2 years ago. Vettel went off the track, came back on and came all the way across, And sure enough, Giovinazzi has the same penalty as Vettel got. And it was highly controversial on that day, but basically came back on the circuit across the whole width of it, where Sainz was accelerating, and they had a tangle. 5-second penalty for Giovinazzi is irrelevant for him. He had to pit with damage at the end of that. He had a brilliant start, was fighting for 5th place with Charles Leclerc, but all undone by basically cutting the second chicane. And then, rather than rejoining, leaving space for a car on the outside, Sainz was maybe being a bit opportunistic. But that's what you do when someone else makes a mistake, and you can't expect them to then sweep across the width of the track and have a collision with you.
Yeah, a fair decision, I think, that. Lap 8 of 53, Italian Grand Prix. And that is former Renault F1 driver alongside me, Jack Nicholls, and Jenny Gow, bringing you coverage of this round of the Formula One World Championship season. It's the 14th race of what is going to be 22 races, so we are very much into the second half of the season now. If it finishes like this, Verstappen would extend his championship lead, but still a long way to go. Lap 8 of 53, Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at Daniel Ricciardo leading this race at the moment, but he has had his lap times deleted for turn 11 a couple of times. Now, you can't go outside what they call track limits. If you do it too many times, you'll get referred to the stewards and might get a penalty, so he just needs to be a bit cautious.
Hamilton is struggling when he gets close. We're getting good gaps to the rest of the field. Keep this up.
So Lando Norris there, running in 3rd place, being told Hamilton is struggling when he gets close to the back of you, and we're pulling away from everybody else. So we're pretty happy with how this is going.
I think Norris is in a good position here. Obviously, 3rd is a good position, but he's just held back from the Ricciardo-Verstappen fight. He's 3 seconds back from Verstappen, and I think that may be to do with saving tyres rather than a lack of pace.
And Sergio Perez is going around the outside of Carlos Sainz. Great move from the Red Bull driver. Gets ahead of the Ferrari, but now Sainz gets the drive, coming out of the Rettifilio chicane and gets back ahead. They go side by side through the flat-out right-hander at Curva Grande, coming up to 200 miles an hour in their battle for 6th position. Sainz in the Ferrari on the inside. Perez has the run on the outside and has the position. So the Red Bull of Sergio Perez up into 6th place. Sainz can't quite get the fight back going into the first Lesmo corner. Nicholas Latifi's having a flying race. He's up into 10th place in the Williams, which is a very impressive achievement. He's got ahead of Esteban Ocon with an overtake out there at some point, because the 2 Alpines of Alonso and Ocon were in 9th and 10th at one point. But good move from Perez. He is up into 6th position.
Only one car between Perez and Hamilton, and that is something that Red Bull can use to basically give Hamilton a tougher second half of the race. Perez is on the same strategy as everyone else that's in the top 10 at the moment. In fact, it's only Bottas who's on the hard tyres as well. And Robert Kubica's Alfa Romeo, but he's well down and not going to be in contention for the points today. So it's the 2 Mercedes have gone hard tyres. Hamilton's going to want to go long, but if Perez can catch Hamilton, he's got to pass Charles Leclerc first. But if he can do that, he'll pit sooner, he can undercut and be another car that Hamilton's going to have to overtake towards the end. So he's one to watch out from. He's got a bit of a gap to make up at the moment. He is 9 seconds away from the Mercedes driver, but Hamilton's being held up behind Norris still.
Lap 10 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix. Ricciardo, Verstappen, Norris and Hamilton are the top 4. Then it's Leclerc in 5th and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull in 6th position. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at when pit window will open with the hard tyre, so the tyre Lewis Hamilton's on, he's going to want to go as long as he possibly can before those tyres fall apart and just wait for an opportunity to arise. Now, the tyres will go till lap 45 of a 53-lap race. He won't want to leave it that long, but he's definitely on the advantage here, having those hard tyres fitted to the car. They'll go really long into this race, and then you never know, safety car might happen, or he might just be able to jump in and be able to get a pit stop ahead of everybody else.
That's something else they've got, being on those hard tyres. A safety car, after everyone else has pitted, would help Hamilton out hugely. He'd have a reduced pit stop time, of pit stop loss, effectively, because everyone else would be going at low speed on the track. They wouldn't be gaining as much as they would on a car that's trundling through the pit lane. So that's something else that we'll see if that comes into play later on, but it would help Hamilton if everyone else pitted, he stays out, and then there's a safety car. That would be huge.
Yeah, at the moment, it's looking like if you started on the medium tyre, you'd want to come in around lap 17 to 25.
And as we're seeing some higher deg on a couple of the medium runners, just need to make sure we can make our target.
So that's Hamilton being told, sort of along this line of thinking, that we need to make sure we look after our tyres to go that long into the Grand Prix, Jenny.
Yeah, if you, just to carry on that, if you strategies-wise want to go onto the hard tyre, you need to make it to around lap 25. If you want to go onto the soft tyre, if you started on a medium, you want to make it to around lap 30, 33. But you want to push as long as you can into this race because overtaking is so difficult. Only one pit stop potentially for 25-second pit stop. So for Hamilton, just push on those hard tyres.
James Booth asks, using the hashtag BBCF1, how strong is the undercut here, i.e. going onto a new set of tyres? Because if they're going onto a harder tyre, and there's not that many corners around Monza, presumably it's not going to be as strong as some tracks.
Well, some tracks is 3 seconds or so, isn't it? Around Bahrain, where you've got high degradation and lots of corners. It's going to be stronger by the time the tyres are suffering, and Hamilton's just been warned that the medium tyres are dropping slightly. The more they drop, the more, when you put on a new set of tyres, you're going to gain lap time.
Norris went wide into the Parabolica, the final corner on the track. That could be an opportunity for Hamilton. He's got the drag reduction system open, and this is the chance for Hamilton to move up into third place. Coming down to the Rettifilio, Norris covers the inside. Hamilton goes to the outside, doesn't try and get it done there, but he'll try and get the switchback, the better line through the Rettifilio chicane, then get on the power better and try and make the overtake into the Roggia chicane, where he went side by side with Verstappen on the opening lap. The sound you can hear is the Mercedes engine coming side by side with Norris, but as soon as he pulls out of that slipstream, the McLaren has more straight line speed, and Norris is able to hold the place in third spot, and they are dropping back from Ricciardo and Verstappen at this point. Ricciardo leads in the McLaren, Verstappen second in the Red Bull. Hamilton and Norris are now 3 seconds back from that pack, and Hamilton couldn't make that move stick lap 12 of 53.
Well, they were 3 seconds already, so they're not actually going slower than the top two, but Norris just got slightly wide, as you say, through the final corner, went over track limits and didn't get a good exit. Hamilton, he took a really wide line into the final corner as well, I think, to try and reduce the effect of the dirty air. Gave him a great slingshot through, and that was great defence from Norris to the inside into turn one, make Hamilton try and go brave around the outside on the brakes. Couldn't do that, but had a good opportunity to switch back. The McLaren straight line speed is immense, though. As soon as he pulled out of the slipstream, couldn't do it.
Last lap, track limits, turn 11.
That's Norris being told that he went all four wheels off the track at the Alboreto curve last time, and you do that too many times and you're going to be getting a time penalty. I don't think Hamilton's going to be close enough this time for a move into the Rettifilio, unless he fancies a really late lunge as they come onto the brakes into the right-left chicane, arriving there at 210 miles an hour, then slowing it down to about 40 miles an hour for the right and then the left. And then coming towards the Roggia, he's not close enough either. So one Mercedes in fourth, Lewis Hamilton, the other Mercedes, Jenny, down in 11th place.
Yeah, just watching Valtteri Bottas's race, he started from last. Obviously, he took a new engine for this weekend. That's a penalty, which means you have to start at the back of the grid. They're hoping that it does him a favour when we get later on in the season, because they'll have a new engine to use in latter parts of it, and you're restricted to only 3. So you take a fourth, you get the penalty, but it does mean you've got a better stock. So yeah, doing a good job. He's now up to 10th place, hunting down points.
Yeah, indeed. He's just got ahead of Nicholas Latifi into the Rettifilio chicane.
Lando Norris was done for track limits again, so consecutive laps. We were riding on board with Hamilton as they came through Parabolica. I thought that Norris had measured it to perfection. It looked like he just kept his right-hand tyres on the white line, but stewards deem otherwise. And that's another warning chalked up. So Lando's going to have to be more careful through that final corner, and that could cost him a bit of lap time.
Verstappen is close again to Daniel Ricciardo as they come across the line to start lap 14 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Just about half an hour or so north of Milan, half an hour or so south of the Italian lakes and Lake Como. And Lewis Hamilton, having started fourth, got up to third, but then dropped back to fourth again.
Using a lot of tyre track to do this. Understood. We see the same with everyone on the medium. Hamilton has to go long. Ideally, we do plan A, but with plan B target lap.
So Lando Norris saying, I'm using up my tyres, trying to hold off Lewis Hamilton, and the team saying, yeah, but everybody else is pretty much using their tyres at the same rate. Hamilton's going long, so we need to stay ahead of him.
And of course for McLaren, they're probably going to lose this spot to Lewis Hamilton at some point. He's on a different strategy. The Mercedes is much the quicker car, but he can't make it through once again. That's now 18 plus 14 laps he's been behind Lando Norris across 2 days. But it's all helping Daniel Ricciardo out front.
So far, I'd say plan A at the moment.
Copy.
So Ricciardo reckons he's on for plan A, whatever plan A is. How many plans did you have plans when you or is this a new thing, this plan A, plan B stuff?
It's been around a long time. Yeah, plan A, B, C. Typically, depending on where levels in the first part of the race, and it depends where you are as well in terms of track position. If you need to change depending on if you've lost a place or gained a place.
Would you ever forget which plan was what?
No.
Okay.
It's pretty simple, you know. You're starting on one set of tyres, and it's whether you come into the pits once or twice, probably, or what tyre you change onto. But this is looking fairly set in stone as a one-stopper medium to hard tyres for those that started on the mediums, and Hamilton will do the reverse, starting on those hards. Will at some point switch to the mediums, presumably. It's just when they pit then, and it seemed from the radio message to Norris that they'd be doing that one pit stop, but try and extend it a little bit, which was presumably the plan B pit stop lap.
I think I'd forget them, but I have remembered to go to Kings Meadow. It's full time in Chelsea versus Everton. Flo Pollock.
Yeah, dominant display from the reigning WSL champions. 4 goals without reply, 2 for Kerr, 1 for Kirby and England. Everton really struggled, and it ended here, Chelsea 4, Everton 0.
And let's check in on the golf at Wentworth with Ian Carter.
Joint leaders now. Thailand's Kiradech Aphibarnrat has been joined by the American Billy Horschel, both at 15 under par, 1 clear of Jamie Donaldson and Francesco Laporta. As far as the Ryder Cup qualifying situation is concerned, joint 5th at the moment for Shane Lowry, 13 under, 2 shots behind. That's good enough just to give him an automatic qualifying place.
Lap 15 of 53, thank you very much, Ian, in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. And Sebastian Vettel and Esteban Ocon have just had a bit of a coming together. Vettel was trying to overtake Ocon around the outside coming into the Rogier chicane, and Ocon just moved over a little too much under braking. Not dissimilar to Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in 2019.
Where inexplicably Leclerc got away with it, with a warning flag. He never should have got away with that one. It was a
well, he might as well taken himself off.
That one was a penalty all day long in 2019, and it's still a penalty all day long when Ocon does it to Vettel. He's basically just driven Vettel off the track, effectively on the straight. It's moving to the outside before the second chicane, and Vettel put off the grass and not very happy about it.
So, lap 16 of 53, Daniel Ricciardo leading the Grand Prix, 0.7 of a second ahead of Max Verstappen still. And then it is Lando Norris in 3rd, Lewis Hamilton in 4th. Hamilton 1 second back from Lando Norris, so he's dropped back a little after that one chance he had to pass a few laps ago. Charles Leclerc is 5th in the Ferrari, 6th is Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, 7th is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Stroll, Alonso and Bottas are the top 10, and Bottas is now within a second of Fernando Alonso, so he's going to be close to passing the Alpine for 9th position before too long. He's done a decent day, actually, a decent job today, Bottas. He's climbed his way up the field relatively well, but he is now getting towards the tougher nuts to crack.
Yep, and he's going to find the same problems as Hamilton soon. He's cleared a Williams, he's done well to clear Ocon and Vettel, midfield cars there, but they're not as quick as the McLarens that both Verstappen and Hamilton are still trying to pass. Leclerc's not doing badly in 5th. Leclerc, on the medium tyres, is only 3 seconds back from Lewis Hamilton. Perez, a further 3 seconds back from him. So Norris is not checking out in 3rd place. That's not a safe 3rd and 4th battle. There's still Leclerc for McLaren and Norris to watch, and that is their fight there.
Lap 17 of 53.
Bottas passes Alonso, nice and easy into turn 1. He's up to 9th, really? What a weekend he's having.
Yeah.
Fastest qualifier, wins the sprint yesterday, takes the new engine, goes to the back of the field, and in 17 laps he's up to 9th.
In the week it was announced he'll be leaving the Mercedes team and joining Alfa Romeo for next year, and George Russell being promoted up to Mercedes. Lap 17 of 53, McLaren still running 1st and 3rd, Jenny.
Oh, they must be chewing off their nails down on the pit wall at the moment, McLaren. So Daniel Ricciardo's just said my limitation is at the rear as Verstappen was closing up on him. Ricciardo is leading this race at the moment, Norris in P3, but this isn't their beef. Yes, they want to get as many points as they possibly can, but what their objective is to beat Ferrari, and that's a clear objective for them in the championship. It's a race to 3rd place and to millions of pounds, so it's really hard for them. They're kind of not in this race, but they totally are, because they're leading it in 3rd place. They've just got to forget about that and go for it.
What are you on about? They're winning. They're winning on a track that's pretty hard to overtake on. Verstappen's got 1 pit stop window.
Rear start sliding.
Understood.
Same message from Daniel just now.
So both Verstappen and Ricciardo complaining that their rear tyres are starting to go.
And that's going to bring that pit stop window quite soon. And without that, he's got to do what he's not been able to do for 18 laps so far and pass Ricciardo on the track for the win. And he's got a chance here, Daniel Ricciardo. The Red Bull is quicker. Only just, by the way, they only just out-qualified the McLaren on Friday evening. The race pace is more favourable towards Red Bull, and that's why Verstappen is stalking Ricciardo within a second pretty much every lap for 18. But if McLaren can somehow fend off the Red Bull in that pit stop window, which is going to be approaching soon for those on the medium tyres, then they've got a chance to winning this. It's going to be tricky because we see so often the faster car can do either undercut or go long and have a tyre advantage at the end. McLaren and Ricciardo have got to defend against that undercut. But it's still doable, and with Norris now 5 seconds adrift of Verstappen, he is dropping back now, slowly but surely, from that group, and he's taking Hamilton back as well. So Hamilton's going to be a threat for Ricciardo and Verstappen at the end of the race, but the more that he's dropping back with Norris not being able to hold the pace of Verstappen, the lesser that threat is going to be for Ricciardo and Verstappen later on.
Beautiful autumnal day in northern Italy, in the trees of the Royal Park around Monza.
Late summer, isn't it?
It's autumnal. Aren't we into autumn yet?
What, early September?
When does autumn start? I thought autumn was September.
Oh.
Are we late summer?
Grey area, isn't it?
Okay. Search and find out. Search for it. Lap 19 and 53. And I was just trying to paint a picture. I was trying to set the scene. Right, a lovely late summer's day in Italy. 29 degrees the air temperature. And Daniel Ricciardo is leading the Grand Prix for McLaren, looking for their first win since 2012. Come on.
Autumn starts on Wednesday, the 22nd of September, so in 10 days' time.
So we've still got 10 days. Okay, fine.
So let's milk this summer.
Need to.
My pace is super strong. You're matching the leaders.
Valtteri Bottas being told his pace is very strong, and he's in 9th place now, Valtteri Bottas, only a second behind Lance Stroll in 8th position, so he's making really good progress. Lap 19 of 53, so we're not at half race distance yet, but we're not too far away from it. Verstappen is still just under a second back from Daniel Ricciardo. As you say, Norris and Hamilton dropping back a little here and there from the top two. So it's the McLaren and the Red Bull of Ricciardo and Verstappen leading. Then 5 seconds back, it's Norris and Hamilton, who are also separated by just a second, the McLaren and the Mercedes. Then it is Charles Leclerc in 5th position in the Ferrari. 6th is Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Sainz, Stroll, Bottas and Alonso are the rest of the top 10. Latifi is getting closed in on now by Esteban Ocon in their fight for 11th position. The incident between Ocon and Vettel, where they came together a few laps ago, is under investigation. And if you missed the start of this Grand Prix, Verstappen started on pole with Ricciardo second. Ricciardo got the better start, took the lead of the race in the McLaren. Hamilton got up to 3rd briefly, but then dropped back to 4th. And that's why the order is Ricciardo, Verstappen, Norris and Hamilton. As it stands, Verstappen would extend his lead at the top of the championship.
Mode 7.
I didn't click anything with the overtake, so why is it going lower?
We're looking into it, hence the changes.
So Verstappen having some troubles with his engine, maybe?
I think they're using energy from the battery and they're not meaning to, basically. So that's, I think when you say, why is it going lower? I think he's talking about the state of charge in the battery. Now, it should be consistent lap after lap in a race run, but it seems that without wanting to deploy extra energy around the lap, which you'd do by pressing the overtake button or changing the mode, Verstappen is slowly having his state of charge reduced. So you start with, let's say, 80% every lap. Slowly, he's going 80%, 75, 70, for
Your
example.
lap times are still as good as anyone.
Yep, understood. I think this is the pace for a bit.
That's Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay, so something interesting that could come into play is Valtteri Bottas. He's in 9th place, he's within a second of Lance Stroll, and he is 26.9 seconds away from the race leader. If he can get to within a pit stop window of Ricciardo and Verstappen, they will emerge from the pits behind the second Mercedes, who is also on the hard tyre and is going long. So that's something that could really play into then Hamilton's hands, and Bottas could again play a big team role. But he needs to clear Stroll and find a second or two to get in the pit stop window of Ricciardo.
Understood.
Yeah, I'll have more time than I gained by cutting.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
So Max Verstappen made a mistake at the Rettifilio chicane, the first corner on the track, went through the runoff area straight ahead, and he was straight on the radio to say, I didn't gain any time there, I don't need a penalty there, but a little bit of an error from Verstappen. Also in that Ocon versus Vettel incident, Ocon has been given a 5-second time penalty for forcing Vettel off the road, which seems fair enough.
Yeah, he's not driving a Ferrari in the lead, is he? That's what happens if you're an Alpine fighting for 12th place. You get the normal penalty for the normal offence.
Okay, definitely plan A.
Right, Ricciardo saying definitely plan A. He's 1.4 seconds ahead of Verstappen as he comes down into the final corner again. The sound you can hear is Valtteri Bottas, and he is now trying to get ahead of Lance Stroll in 8th position. Lap 22 of 53, so we're approaching half-race distance, Jenny Gow.
Yeah, and we are approaching the pit lane opening and that option being there for people who want to come in and change over their tyres. So if you started on the medium tyre, much like Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen, if you want to switch to the soft, lap 27, the pit window would open for you.
Valtteri Bottas gains another place. He's up into 8th now, ahead of Lance Stroll, and his next target is going to be Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, who's 7 seconds up the road, so it's going to be a long one, but it's a good move there from Bottas.
Now that might force Ricciardo and Verstappen to pit, because they don't want to come out behind Bottas, who now has 6 seconds of clear air to try and catch Carlos Sainz. Bottas, remember, the fastest person in qualifying on Friday. He's got pace and he's got durability on those tyres. If Ricciardo and Verstappen pit and come out behind Bottas, he can slow them down on their fresh tyres for the rest of the race and give Hamilton the chance to do a massive overcut and be even more of a threat later on.
Lap 22 of 53. Thank you to Anne McLaren are running out into the pit lane now then. So are Red Bull. So this will be an interesting one. Ricciardo pits from the race lead and Verstappen stays out then. So Daniel Ricciardo into the pits from the lead of the Grand Prix, pulls into his pit garage. Everybody gets to work. They change all 4 tyres. It's a pretty neat and tidy stop from the McLaren squad at 2.4 seconds. And when will Red Bull decide to come into the pits with Max Verstappen? Are they going to try and extend and leave him out for a little bit longer? Here's his radio. Let's have it, is the message.
So this could be a one-shot for Verstappen to try and overcut Daniel Ricciardo. How quickly can Ricciardo get those hard tyres working on this outlap? Verstappen was 1.4 seconds back. He wasn't as close as he had been earlier on. He's only emerged a couple of seconds ahead of Bottas. That was the crucial one. He pitted, he covered off Bottas as soon as Bottas passed Stroll. Verstappen, I think, has got to do the same thing, and he's wringing the neck of the Red Bull coming out of Les Mots 2, right up towards the gravel. This is hammer time for Verstappen. Finally, he's got clear air. He's not going that quickly on this lap, though.
Keep the pressure on. It wasn't a super quick stop from McLaren.
Yeah, my tyres are
The team's saying go quickly, and he's saying, yeah, but I got nothing left in my tyres, Max Verstappen. Is he going to come into the pits this time around? He comes down towards the Curva Alboreto, the final right-hander. It's a 180-degree corner, and he is going to come into the pits. I think Ricciardo's got a real chance of holding the lead of the Grand Prix here. In comes Verstappen.
Personal best middle sector of the race for Ricciardo. He's done enough, I think. I don't see how Verstappen can beat him with his shod tyres at the end of 24 laps.
Off go the medium tyres, on go the hard tyres for Red Bull, and it's uncharacteristically slow. Verstappen's still in the pits. Verstappen's still in the pits. Usually the stop takes 2 seconds, and Verstappen is still yet to leave the pit lane. Away he goes now. It's a catastrophe. It's 11 seconds, and that could give Hamilton and Mercedes the opportunity to finish this Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen and to take the lead of the championship. Verstappen is going to emerge behind Valtteri Bottas, and Hamilton is going to get ahead of Lando Norris. I think Hamilton's got ahead of Lando Norris and taken the lead of the Grand Prix down into the Roggia. Hamilton leads, Norris second. They've still got to make their pit stops, but that is a net second place now, I think, for Lewis Hamilton, behind Daniel Ricciardo when the pit stops shake out. But Hamilton will be out there for a lot longer. Hamilton finally makes the overtake on Lando Norris and now leads the Italian Grand Prix.
That's also huge. 2 massive moments happening simultaneously in the title race. Verstappen and Red Bull, they've cost themselves 9 seconds in the pit stops. He's going to be way behind Hamilton, and Hamilton put in a move at the same time on Lando Norris around the outside.
Nice work, Lewis. This is off. Come on, mate.
At the second chicane, in a bit deep, he was slightly ahead of Norris going in, and Lando on the medium tyres as well, remember. The ones that Verstappen was complaining about being so finished, Norris on the same, struggling for grip, and he's lost the place. That's really bad news for Ricciardo.
What the
Talk.
So it looked as though a very strange, well, into the pits comes Lando Norris now. He goes onto the hard tyres. Let's see where he comes out. He's going to come out in front of Max Verstappen, you would presume. He's making his way towards the end of the pit lane now. Ricciardo is having to fight with Carlos Sainz as they come down into turn 1, and Ricciardo on his fresher tyres gets ahead of Sainz. Norris is emerging from the pit lane now ahead of Max Verstappen. So both McLarens are now ahead of Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton, therefore, is net ahead of Verstappen, but he's going to be staying out on these tyres a bit longer, I would have thought. A fascinating Italian Grand Prix we've got emerging here.
So now what we've got is possibly Hamilton v Ricciardo for the race win much later down the line. Ricciardo has covered off Verstappen, but really Verstappen covered himself off, or Red Bull did, by having that slow pit stop. He wasn't going to emerge ahead of Ricciardo anyway, but they've actually lost now to Lando Norris. In turn, they'll have lost out to Lewis Hamilton as well then.
Does Hamilton pit now just to keep the track position over Verstappen?
No, because he's on hard tyres. He's got to go to the mediums.
Yeah, but they've got halfway.
Yeah, they can, but why would he do that? He's got enough time, and he'll be quick at the end.
Norris ahead of you. Norris ahead.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'll leave you to it.
Yeah, just come on the radio whenever it's critical, but...
Hamilton pits. Hamilton pits from the lead of the Grand Prix, goes onto the hard tyres, onto the medium tyres, and it's slow from Hamilton as well in the pit stop, 4.2 seconds, so this could be tight. I think they've done this just to keep ahead of Verstappen and not worry about winning the Grand Prix, but just fight the driver that they're fighting with in the championship. And Verstappen is coming down the start-finish straight now, up to 200 miles an hour. Hamilton emerges from the pit lane, and Hamilton is going to come out behind Norris. He's going to be side by side with Verstappen, and he's going to move across on Verstappen. Verstappen tries to go all the way around the outside. Hamilton doesn't give him room, and they bang wheels, and they're off. Verstappen is on top of Hamilton. They're both out of the Italian Grand Prix, and the title rivals collide again. Absolute drama in Monza. The rear of Verstappen's car is up on the nose of Hamilton's car, and the safety car is deployed. And Verstappen has gone right over the top of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, and they're parked on top of each other in the gravel trap on the exit. Hamilton's trying to get out of it.
You get where you don't leave the space.
Another incredible twist in this 2021 Formula One season, and the rivalry that was incredibly intense after their collision at Silverstone has just ramped up another huge amount. Hamilton is still trying to reverse out from underneath Verstappen's car. Verstappen's car is on top of Hamilton, sort of backed onto him, with Hamilton's like a wedge underneath. And Hamilton was still trying to reverse out. Safety car deployed. Charles Leclerc's going to come into the pits here. He could end up potentially leading this Grand Prix for Ferrari, Charles Leclerc.
I don't think he's close enough to Ricciardo, but he's going to have an advantage here. Anyone that hadn't pitted and is pitting now will have that pit stop time reduced, as we were saying with Hamilton earlier on. Hamilton's not benefited from it because he's the one that's had the incident with Verstappen. That's monumental. Two drivers fighting for this championship, and they can't afford to lose to each other, so they just crash. Second time we've had that.
Wow. Both drivers are okay. Verstappen's already got out of his car and is storming back to the pit lane. Leclerc's now in second place here. Ricciardo leads, and then, well, it is Leclerc in second, Norris in third, Perez is in fourth position in the Red Bull. We're behind the safety car. Fifth is Sainz. Bottas is now suddenly up into sixth place. But Hamilton and Verstappen are out of the Italian Grand Prix after crashing again, this time at the Rettifilo chicane. Hamilton has got out of his car now, and both the title rival, in fact, he's just getting out of his car now, and both title rivals come together once more. Haven't seen a replay yet, so difficult to judge. Hamilton didn't give Verstappen space on the apex.
And that's what Max said. That's what you get when you don't leave the space. It didn't sound like Max was, too bothered about the crash. He was just like, if you don't leave the space, we crash, and that's it. And that's exactly how it was. Mercedes had a slow pit stop. That's what put Hamilton in that window. They pitted to cover him off, as you were saying that they might. They did that. But the slow stop cost them 2 seconds, put them behind Norris, side by side with Verstappen. They're wheel to wheel into turn one, and neither of them yielded.
Well, we're getting a replay then, on board with Verstappen, coming down into the first corner. He sends it aggressively to the outside, and he gets alongside with Hamilton. And then there's I feel racing incident for me. I think Hamilton does leave some space. Maybe I'm wrong. We're getting a few more views of it, and obviously Jolyon Palmer is the former F1 driver here.
Wow, Verstappen's coming from a really tight angle into turn 2. Hamilton leaves just about the space, but barely the space. Verstappen goes for it, but Lord, it's when he goes over the curb on the inside. It just pitches him slightly into Hamilton, but Hamilton made it so tight for him anyway.
It did give him room though on the apex, didn't he? When he came back across, I will say that it's the Halo did a good job there. I would suggest,
wow.
But because Verstappen's car came down pretty much on Hamilton's head, but the Halo head protection device above the drivers that was brought in a few years ago took a lot of the impact. In fact, I think Hamilton is getting Verstappen's rear right wheel on his head there, isn't he?
That is one of the most graphic displays of the halo at work or the roll hoop at work.
Well,
I think the car's sitting on the roll hoop at the top.
I think it's a bit of both.
And it's then coming down over the cockpit. Nasty coming together then. I think it's one of those ones where Hamilton could have opened up the corner more at turn 2. He could have given Verstappen more space. He made it really, really tricky into 1 and then into 2. And Verstappen, with that limited space, got slightly on the sausage curve, and that's what pitched him more into Hamilton at turn 2. Neither of them yielding, and for the second time, the two title rivals have crashed.
Jenny Gow.
Just going back to your points, you both made different points saying Hamilton should come in, Hamilton shouldn't come in. The simple fact is now, if he hadn't have come in, he'd still be in this race and leading and nowhere near Verstappen, and that crash would not have happened. Not then, anyway.
But he would have ended up behind Verstappen, ultimately. So Verstappen then still leads the championship by 5 points, going to the Russian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time.
And for all the furore after Silverstone, talking about was it a racing incident, was it not? Now, I thought it was a racing incident at Silverstone. I'd put this one down as a racing incident as well. But the racing incident at Silverstone, or the incident at Silverstone, was given a Hamilton penalty because Hamilton carried on and won the race, I think. So it seemed more obvious. But this is the sort of outcome when you have two drivers not giving an inch, or barely giving an inch, you have these sort of collisions happen. And if one had got away with this one and the other one was out, again, it would have caused an enormous stink. When it's two drivers fighting like this for a championship, neither of them willing to yield, this sort of thing is inevitable, and they're both out. We've got Daniel Ricciardo leading the race from Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren at the top. And there's no love lost between Verstappen and Hamilton, is there? Wow.
Absolutely remarkable. So Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton have collided while battling for a net third position in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. And Max Verstappen has walked the half a kilometre from the first corner where he crashed back to the pit lane now. Hamilton is walking back as well, both leaving their helmets on still. Walking up along the inside of the circuit alongside the old banking that was first built in the early 20th century. And it is Daniel Ricciardo leading the Italian Grand Prix behind the safety car. Leclerc second, Norris third, Perez fourth, Sainz fifth, Bottas sixth, Stroll seventh, Alonso eighth, Russell and Latifi, the two Williams, are now in 9th and 10th. Ocon is 11th. Kubica, Vettel, Schumacher, Giovinazzi and Mazepin, the 16 drivers still running.
Imagine being any of those other drivers still driving around, seeing safety car deployed and seeing Verstappen's car on the top of Hamilton's car. You're just thinking, you're driving around focusing on your own race and you're just looking at that and you're thinking, that is huge. That's huge. I've had it before in Barcelona in 2016. Hamilton and Rosberg both crashed out and there was a safety car. And I was told over the radio, two Mercedes have wiped each other out. I just thought, whoa. That's a huge one. For me, it's a racing incident.
Yeah,
it's a racing incident. It's side by side. Verstappen squeezed to the curb, really, on the inside. He wasn't given space. He was quite well alongside. Hamilton continued to turn in. It's a racing incident once again.
But for me, Hamilton gives Verstappen plenty of space at the second apex. It's not as though he's squeezed him there as well.
No, well, I think if he'd squeezed him to not give the cars width there, you'd say that was a more clear-cut Hamilton slamming the door, but he's given a little bit of space, but he's squeezed him the whole way through turn one. They're side by side. Yes, Verstappen could have backed out of that one, but also Hamilton could have given a lot more space. They both, like Silverstone, they both could have done things to avoid it, and they'll argue the other one should have done more. The stewards are going to have a look at it after the race. They can speak to both drivers and take their time on that one, because there's no race result now that will be affected by the decision. But for me, they were both could have avoided it once again, and squeezing each other to within inches on either side. The way into turn one, Hamilton moved to the left, put a squeeze on Verstappen. That part was fine. Verstappen then hangs it around the outside of turn one, stays on the track. That's fine. But then he's very, very tight into turn two, and there's nowhere really for him to open it up. Yes, he could have backed out of that one. And if Verstappen was racing against Lance Stroll in an Aston Martin, and they were, had a long way to go in this race, Max would have backed out of it and not gone for that move on the inside of two. And it was launching that sausage curve which just put him a little bit wider there and slammed him into Hamilton's car. But I also think that Hamilton did squeeze him a lot through the first corner. They were racing really hard and turned into turn two. Could have given him a bit more space, knowing that there was a Red Bull well up his inside with very tight space, and also knowing that Verstappen's not about to back out of it, is he?
Edward says, using hashtag BBZF1, title rivals collide at Silverstone, title rivals collide at Monza, very 1995, which is very true. Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher collided in both Silverstone and Monza in their championship fight in that season. This is the Italian Grand Prix on BBC Radio 5 Live. Jolyon Palmer, the former Renault F1 driver, giving his thoughts on Verstappen and Hamilton's latest collision. He's alongside me, Jack Nicholls, and Jenny Gow.
Max Verstappen's just made it back to the garage. He talks to Dr. Helmut Marko, shrugs his shoulders, looks fairly unimpressed with the turn of events. He'll watch that back, and I'm just saying this all because you have to look back at those replays, and they'll be shown again and again and again, and that halo and the roll hoop have potentially been a dramatic effect in meaning that neither driver is harmed by that. It was a huge, horrible impact for Hamilton, saved by the halo, which is incredible. And I just have to say, we were doubting the effect of the sprint race. The other two things that this has in common: go to Silverstone, they crashed. Come here, sprint race yesterday, they crashed today. Maybe it's just, coincidence.
Mixes it up a bit, doesn't it? Yeah. That's exactly what is intended. There we go. I love the sprint race. Right, the safety car is ending, so here's Norris's radio.
We're going to have our chance on the clock, so we've just got to use our head here. Still a long way to go.
We're on lap 30 of 53. The Italian Grand Prix is about to get underway again here on BBC Radio 5 Live, with Daniel Ricciardo leading for McLaren. Then it's Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari in second, Lando Norris in third for the McLaren, fourth is Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, fifth is Sainz, sixth is Bottas.
Attack.
And Bottas is being told to go maximum attack. So we will fully get into the Hamilton-Verstappen stuff in the Checker Flag podcast, which you can download later on. But now it's the restart of the Grand Prix, Jolyon.
Bottas in sixth on medium tyres as well. He's going to have the best tyres because he started on those hards. Ricciardo's gone already.
Very quick restart from Daniel Ricciardo as they come into the curve of Alboreto. The final corner, the right-hander, and Norris goes wide, off track limits again. He's going to get a good run here on Charles Leclerc, coming down towards the first corner, and the McLaren is very good in a straight line, and it could be a McLaren 1-2 by the end of the straight. Leclerc tries to cover it off. Norris goes to the inside, gets onto the brakes, and gets ahead, does he? Leclerc holds on around the outside. Bottas is also trying to pass Carlos Sainz as they come into the Rettifilio, and he hasn't been able to do it. There's a bit of contact at the back. I think it's Sebastian Vettel and Mick Schumacher coming together, and Norris is going for Leclerc again, this time coming through Curva Grande. He makes the move stick. It's a McLaren 1-2 at the Italian Grand Prix. Leclerc is shuffled down to third, fourth is still Perez, fifth is still Sainz, sixth is still Valtteri Bottas, but it is McLaren first and second, Ricciardo ahead of Norris.
Dreamy stuff for McLaren. What a weekend they've had so far. They've had the best pace they've had pretty much all season. They were strong here last year, and now they're in a 1-2. Lando Norris, he went a long way over track limits on that safety car restart. Got a good run on Leclerc. The McLaren, we said it from the start of the race, they're really quick in a straight line, and he's used that pace to get a run on Leclerc into the first corner. Leclerc around the outside has held off deep on the brakes, but Lando then has had a good run on the exit, and he's through.
Lando, track limits, turn 11. That was our second official warning, second one.
So Norris being given his second official warning for track limits on the exit of turn 11. McLaren haven't had a victory since the last Grand Prix of 2012. They haven't had a 1-2 since the Canadian Grand Prix in 2010. And we'll see whether it is going to be the case, because there's still a long way to go. And Valtteri Bottas is going at Carlos Sainz again. Sergio Perez is trying to get at Charles Leclerc. Bottas is going all the way around the outside of Sainz, gets the job done on the brakes. Really nice move that from Valtteri Bottas. It's also side by side between the Williams and the Alpine further back, and that is Ocon getting ahead of Nicholas Latifi. Esteban Ocon gets up into 10th place. Robert Kubica has just passed Sebastian Vettel in an impressive move, but Ricciardo leads. Norris is second, and they're side by side again for third place, and Perez bounce over the curbs, and Perez is third ahead of Charles Leclerc. So look, Perez holds on to third place, Leclerc is down to fourth, fifth is Bottas.
You watch out for Bottas, he's on those medium tyres, everyone around him on the hards, and he's going quickly, really strong this weekend. Started from the back of the field, he's in fifth, and he's not out of this.
Daniel Ricciardo leading, a second ahead of Lando Norris. There's a goal at Nottingham Forest versus Cardiff City. Naz Premji's there.
Nottingham Forest 1, Cardiff 0. Max Lowe cut back. Lewis Graben guiding the ball past Dylan Phillips. Nottingham Forest 1, Cardiff 0.
The two Haas drivers have collided. Nikita Mazepin has nudged Mick Schumacher into a spin. They're fighting over last position, but that'll be an extra dynamic there in their intra-team rivalry. I'm not sure...
He didn't leave me any room.
I'm not sure Perez's pass is legal, you know. He's overtaken Charles Leclerc for third, and I'm not convinced that's legal. Valtteri Bottas is right in there as well.
Bottas going to pass Leclerc here.
Bottas to the inside of Charles Leclerc, coming down into the Rettifilio, and the Mercedes driver is up into fourth position. Leclerc's late on the brakes. Bottas wasn't expecting that. Leclerc's too late on the brakes. Skips across the runoff area. Emerges still in front of Valtteri Bottas, but Bottas has the drive through Curva Grande, and he does now take fourth position. Ricciardo leads. Norris second. Perez third in the Red Bull. Fourth is Bottas in the Mercedes, but for how much longer? Because Leclerc's coming back at him and going back ahead of him, coming into the Roggia chicane. Ricciardo, Norris, Perez, Leclerc, Bottas is now the order of the top five.
And I agree, I don't think Perez's move was legitimate on Leclerc. Around the outside, he was slightly ahead coming into the corner, but he hadn't completed the pass. He did so off the road by cutting the corner, and quite frankly, he wasn't squeezed all that much at that point. He could have almost made it through, would have been tight, but could have done. But he took the place off the track. Perez is surely going to have to give that place back, and he wants to do it now before Bottas also passes Leclerc, because then he won't be able to do it.
Lap 33 of 53. Ricciardo and Norris are only 0.8 of a second apart. Let's get an update from the Gulf with Ian Carter.
Kiradek Api Barnrat now 3 shots clear after an eagle at the par 5 12th. As far as the Ryder Cup qualification is concerned, Shane Lowry with a bogey at the 9th, now playing the 12th. The Irishman at 12 under is in a share of 14th place and out of the automatic qualification spots at the moment.
Thank you very much, Ian. We're on lap 34 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and Valtteri Bottas is trying to get fourth place again away from Charles Leclerc, and he does it this time. Hamilton and Verstappen, the two championship leaders, are out of this race, having collided at the first chicane, as they did at Silverstone a few months ago, and so we will hear from them as soon as possible, of course. Lap 34 of 53, though, and it is Daniel Ricciardo leading, Lando Norris in second, in what would be a outrageous McLaren 1-2 if they can hold on to this one. Jolyon Palmer.
Is their biggest threat, though, Valtteri Bottas?
How is that allowed to go off, and then you get a tow from that?
So Bottas not happy about the skipping over the curbs that Leclerc did on the previous lap.
Yeah, it was questionable in a Hamilton 2008 Belgian way. Basically cut the corner, and then by doing so lost the place, but stayed close enough to get a run back, and he passed Bottas at the next corner. It's redundant now because Bottas is back through, and now he's chasing Perez. This is for third place now for Bottas, who started at the back. He's had a great drive. He's overtaking like I've not seen Valtteri overtake before as well. He's got 3 cars to pass, and he can win this race. He's on the medium tyres. They're good enough to go to the end. We know that from everyone's first stints. The safety car just extended that, reduced that distance they've got to do on the medium tyres as well. And he's the man that qualified fastest on Friday.
And he's just set the fastest lap of the race. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at those two McLarens, it looks like Lando Norris was trying to bring the gap down. Now, I just wonder if McLaren will let these two drivers race. Norris, slightly fresher tyres, but only by 3 laps. Norris, though, is the one that's ahead in the championship standings. I just think they're worried about what's going on behind, but what do they do about these two cars? Norris will want to be going through.
I think if he's close enough, Ricciardo won't fight him, would be my suggestion, but I can't see them playing a team orders game here with McLaren.
I think they'll fight. I think they'll fight this one out on track. I don't see Ricciardo waving the white flag on this one. He's led the race since the start. He's got 18 laps to go. He's got his teammate there as a rear gunner / first rival at this stage. Norris has never won a race. Ricciardo's never won for McLaren.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to pick up the pace of it. He's driving too slow.
And that is Norris in second place in the second McLaren, saying Ricciardo is driving too slow. I need him to be quicker, because right behind them is Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Right behind them is Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes.
Norris saying, I need him to pick up the pace, or kind of inadvertently, can we do team orders, please, because he's too slow. That's always the classic message you get on the radio is when you're complaining about your teammate being too slow ahead, I want to swap the positions. And of course, that's for the race lead. I can't see McLaren doing that. It would be such a huge decision.
That 36 of 53. Down into the Rettifilo chicane.
Norris had a little look on Ricciardo there. He was too far back, but just getting in the mirrors of his teammate. It's on. It's on for the race win here between the two McLarens. Now, if Verstappen couldn't pass Ricciardo at the start, you wonder how Norris is going to do it.
So with Bottas looking quick, we think the best thing is to be as quick as you can to the end of the race and just pull a gap on these cars behind if possible.
So that's Ricciardo being told, don't worry too much about just looking after your tyres, just drive as fast as you can and win the Grand Prix. Norris was really close coming into the second chicane at the Della Roggia. They're now up by the two Lesmo right-handers, named after the little town that's just the other side of the runoff area and the train station there that shuttles people back and forth from Milan for every Grand Prix. But it is Daniel Ricciardo, the Australian, in his first year with McLaren. He's had a horrible year, a really, maybe his worst Formula One year, Daniel Ricciardo, so far, but he's really had it hooked up all weekend, and now he's leading after Verstappen and Hamilton have crashed into each other again. He's ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. Sergio Perez is third. Valtteri Bottas is in fourth place in the other Mercedes.
McLaren worried about the threat of Bottas more than the threat of Perez, who's the driver in third, just behind Lando Norris. Almost if Ricciardo can keep Norris at about 8 tenths back, that's the perfect situation, because he's going to be not really under threat from Perez at that distance, because he'll also have DRS.
Norris didn't seem to have his DRS open that time. He was out of DRS range, actually, from Ricciardo, so that gives a little bit of a threat for Perez, and Bottas has got an excellent drive. Oh, just a bit, maybe too much wheel spin.
That's a better lap, Daniel. Let's have those lap times if you can. That's good.
Ricciardo being told that is a better lap. I thought Bottas was going to be close enough to Perez for a move, and he isn't quite. Didn't quite get the traction coming off of the Variante Rettifilo, the first chicane on the circuit.
Constructors' Championship points still up for grabs between Red Bull and Mercedes, both with one car left in this race. Perez has had a tricky run of form, but also Bottas has had a tricky run of form and is losing his seat for next year. But they're the only ones left in the race for these two teams, so there's still important positions for third and fourth. Both of them are in theoretically a faster car than the McLarens ahead, and Perez has a 5-second penalty.
Oh, Sergio Perez, a 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Now, we thought that would be the case. It looked pretty obvious, and actually Perez had a similar incident yesterday, and the team said, give the place back. They didn't do that today, and he's paying the penalty for it quite literally.
And it seemed the obvious thing to do for Perez as well. Why did he keep the place by going off the track? I've done the exact move myself in 2017, and I got a 5-second penalty.
Why didn't you give the place back?
Couldn't be bothered. Didn't care to.
The sound you can hear is Bottas. He's closing in on Perez, coming down into turn one. We'll just watch him coming into the Della Roggia chicane, and then we'll get a word from Jenny in a moment. Onto the power comes Bottas.
That 2017 one, it was because I was ahead of Alonso into the corner, and I felt he squeezed me wide, and he did. And that's going to be Perez's argument as well. But you've got to complete the move off the track. I took the 5-second penalty, and you carry on with it. But for Perez now, that's going to drop him behind Bottas, obviously, but also back behind Leclerc, and he can't go any quicker because he's stuck behind Norris. He needed to just get the place back and then try and pass Leclerc again.
Former Renault F1 driver Jolyon Palmer alongside me, Jack Nicholls, and Jenny Gow.
Yeah, we're not expecting the drivers to come in and do any more pit stops, which means that penalty gets added on as a time penalty at the end of the race. So not a lot he can do about it.
Okay, check, we've had a 5-second penalty for that overtake on Leclerc. All those out, we're going to get that 5-second gap.
Norris has a penalty as well.
Negative, nothing for Norris yet.
So Perez feeling that was unfair, that Norris doesn't get a penalty for that where he cut the chicane, but he came up behind and then got the run. So it's a very different situation, I would suggest. Just going to see what Bottas can do coming down the start-finish straight now. 15 laps to go in Monza, and Bottas is close-ish to the back of Perez, but not quite close enough. Jenny?
Yeah, just worth saying, DRS impact here is 4 kilometres per hour if you've got the flap open. The problem is, for everybody else, they're now in a big old trail of cars with more joining at the back, which means it is just a DRS trail. Everyone's able to open their DRS, which kind of nullifies the impact of it. So for anybody now to overtake, it's going to take some masterful movement out there.
And who does that suit? Well, the two at the front, who are in the same team. They're in the DRS train. Well, they're not quite, actually. Norris is just over a second away from Ricciardo. But if he can stay that close to Ricciardo, McLaren, the last thing they need is Norris to go and attack Ricciardo for the win. It will give Perez or Bottas chances to pick up the pieces as well. But if Norris can just sit behind Ricciardo, he's getting a nice slipstream, maybe a bit of DRS if he can get within a second, and it makes it very, very difficult for him to be passed, as we saw yesterday, as we saw in the first stint. I think the one you were referring to there was Leclerc cutting the corner, wasn't it? And getting back past Bottas.
So what was Perez complaining about with Norris?
I wonder if the Norris one is him going all 4 wheels off the track at the final corner on that safety car restart.
Well, maybe, yeah.
No one's really talking about it. That's the only thing that he gained an advantage by going off the track. But we've seen them sort of be allowed before because he didn't make the move at that corner. He made the move, actually, not even at the next corner, but the second chicane. So I think Norris should be okay, but certainly he just flew off the road at the final corner on that safety car restart, and it did help him get a run on Charles Leclerc.
Mick Schumacher has got up into 15th place ahead of Nikita Mazepin, his teammate. Mazepin's just been given a 5-second time penalty for causing that collision with Mick Schumacher a few laps ago, but Schumacher is now back in front. Daniel Ricciardo leads the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. He's 1.1 seconds ahead of Lando Norris, his McLaren teammate. They are 9 tenths ahead of Sergio Perez, 8 tenths ahead of Valtteri Bottas, then a second back to Charles Leclerc as well. Mazepin lost the place to Schumacher because he had a huge lockup coming into the first corner at the Rettifilo and had to cut through the polystyrene bollards that act as the chicane. Wiped one out as well, so not a great day for Mazepin. He's into the pits now, probably with a flat spot on his tyres too. But Ricciardo leading the Grand Prix, a second ahead of Norris, 8 tenths ahead of Perez, 7 tenths ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Bottas is on a softer compound tyre, he's on the mediums, everybody else is on the hards, but he's not quite able to use it at the moment.
Well, the longer those mediums go now, they're going to start to lose their edge. They'll degrade quicker than the hards of everyone else. And they'll sort of neutralise the tyre offsets. When you first put the tyres on, here's Norris.
Do you think it's best for us if I stay like this, stay where I am?
Lando, best for us where you are.
So that is Norris playing the team game, basically, by the sounds of it. Just hold on to that second position and sit in there. Again, Bottas is very close to Perez, coming down into the Rettifilo. Not close enough for a move this time, but it's a tough one for Bottas. He's effectively ahead of Perez because of Perez's time penalty, but he isn't on the track, so he's not allowed to, or not able to, try and challenge the two McLarens up in first and second. So he still needs to get past Perez if he wants to attack for the race lead, even though he is going to finish ahead of Perez because of Perez's time penalty.
That's the problem for Bottas. He'll be just wishing that Perez would take his 5 seconds just now, just give up his 5 seconds, but that's not how it works. It'll go at the end of the race. So in the meantime, he's got a car between him and the 2 race-leading McLarens.
There's a yellow flag out in the first sector. We'll see whether anyone's run into trouble in there. Lap 41 and 53. And it is Ricciardo leading Norris, Perez, Bottas. Leclerc sights the top 6. Stroll is 7th, Alonso 8th, Russell doing a good job in 9th, ahead of Esteban Ocon in 10th. And then it's Latifi, Kubica, Vettel, Giovinazzi, Schumacher and Mazepin, the 16 drivers still running. Through the right-hander at the Curva Alboreto. Lap 42 of 53, 12 laps to go in the Italian Grand Prix. Later on this afternoon at 4:30. It's Leeds United versus Liverpool at Elland Road. That is a 4:30 kickoff. And then 9 o'clock tonight, it's the men's final in the US Open, which Russell Fuller will bring you all of the coverage of from Flushing Meadows. Lap 42 of 53 as Novak Djokovic tries to complete an incredible year of tennis and an incredible career of tennis, really, trying to go with one more Grand Slam win than Nadal and Federer. Lap 42 of 53.
Perez, if he takes 5 seconds at the moment, which he has to do at some point, if the race was to finish now, instead of finishing third, he's finishing 6th, because Leclerc is only 1 second away from Bottas, and Sainz is within a second of Leclerc. He's only just ahead of Lance Stroll in 7th place. That's how costly keeping that position was by gaining it off the circuit. He had to be giving it back straight away, instead of fighting for 3rd or even 4th if he couldn't pass Leclerc again. He's sort of right out of this net, and he can't go any quicker because he's still stuck within a second of Lando Norris, but nowhere near able to send a lunge on him into turn 1.
Bottas always looks the closest of the drivers, doesn't he? In that train from 1st down to 6th position, Ricciardo, Norris, Perez, Bottas, Leclerc and Sainz. It is always Bottas who looks a little closer to Perez than anyone else does, and again he's close this time around as they come down the start-finish straight towards the Rettifilio, and here comes Valtteri Bottas. This is his chance for 3rd place. Goes to the outside. Perez covers the inside. They get onto the brakes, into the right and the left, where the sister Mercedes and Red Bulls came together. No such drama this time. Bottas is going to get a very good run, though, coming towards the Roger chicane. This is his opportunity to take 3rd place and try and close in on the McLarens for the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Perez again covers the inside. Bottas is on the outside, and Bottas brakes later and gets the move done. Sends it in pretty deep, and Perez fights back, gets the move back again. Back into 3rd place goes the Red Bull up the inside into the first Lesmo. Bottas just overcooked it a bit into the Roger chicane, and that might have been his one shot with 11 laps to go.
That was exquisite wheel-to-wheel racing between the two. In the end, Bottas so deep on the brakes around the outside of the Roger chicane, the second chicane. Perez, it looked like he braked quite early at first and didn't put up a huge fight, but he actually just thought, I can't go that late. He'd run off the track. This is the sound of the replay with Bottas into the second chicane. So he goes in deep, looks like he's got the place. It's too deep. He runs really wide. He actually gets it stopped and it's okay, but then Perez measures it perfectly on the exit and he's back through. So a well-measured bit of defence there for Sergio Perez.
So Daniel Ricciardo leading the Italian Grand Prix for McLaren. Lando Norris is 2nd, and Nikita Mazepin has pulled off the circuit, I think, in the Haas. There's a bit of gravel being kicked up. I don't know if he's spun or it looks as though he's pulled over to me. Lap 44 of 53.
He's pulled over in a good place. I think they can push that behind the barriers quite quickly, but will there be any virtual safety car or anything for this? Mazepin jumping out of the car. There's a virtual safety car now. Not a full safety car now. And Bottas was so close to Perez again into the second chicane as that was called, but just neutralised for a moment whilst they clear Mazepin's stricken car.
Lap 44 of 53. 10 laps to go in the Italian Grand Prix. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at George Russell and how he's faring out there. He's currently in 9th place in the Williams. Pretty impressive for him. And there were days when we'd be shouting from the rafters saying, my goodness, he might score a couple of points. He's got loads of points now.
Yeah.
They just kind of keep on coming in for him. Great stuff from Russell.
Yep, having a good day. And Nicholas Latifi out-qualified him, sort of, having finished ahead in the sprint yesterday. And now Russell is ahead and in a 9th position with Latifi in 11th. Now, the virtual safety car is going to end fairly soon because Nikita Mazepin's Haas has been removed there on the right-hand side, and it looks as though the McLarens have got a great big advantage here when the race gets back underway. Virtual safety car is ending now. Ricciardo floors it. Oh, no, not quite. I thought he was going. Now the track goes green. And Bottas has lost out hugely. Leclerc is right behind him, and the McLarens have a huge advantage. I'm genuinely not convinced the virtual safety car works overall, because the graphs always seem to be way different to what they were initially. Anyway.
Well, Ricciardo is now 2 seconds clear of Norris. He's benefited quite well from that somehow. I think Norris was definitely closer before. And Bottas was right behind Perez, and well, he's still within a second, but just lost out a little bit, lost that bit of impetus that he was having a bit of momentum there on the back of Perez for third. He is third net because Perez has that 5-second penalty, but the Red Bull being there means that he can't go and attack Lando Norris in second.
Vettel gets ahead of Kubica for 12th position. George Russell was, well, Kubica's just got him back actually in that fight. George Russell was very close to the back of Fernando Alonso coming into the Rettifilo, and Alonso covered the inside line and managed to hold the place. Lap 45 of 53 in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. It's a McLaren 1-2 still, looking for their first 1-2 finish since the 2010 Canadian Grand Prix with Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button. Perez is in third place in the Red Bull, but he's got a 5-second time penalty, so he'll drop back down the order. And Daniel Ricciardo out in front, the Australian, moved to McLaren. Very difficult first year with the team so far, but all weekend he has looked on it, and he is looking pretty comfortable out in front at the moment.
Chance for Bottas coming up.
Daniel has been told to try and pull away. Let's go with him.
Yeah, it's much better that way.
So Norris saying, yep, let's pull away, and here comes Bottas again in the fight for third place. He's got the DRS open, coming down towards the Rettifilo. It's too far back, though, I think. Not going to be able to make the move this time. He's still in a net third place, Bottas, because Perez has that 5-second time penalty, but if he needs to get past Perez if he wants to close in on the McLarens. Time is running out, and he's just made a mistake.
He's had a few lockups in the dirty air of Perez, trying to force the issue, and was so close to getting that move done a couple of laps ago, but couldn't. And again, just locking up really close behind Perez, but not enough to make the Mexican defend at turn 1. Perez, though, is a second and a half away from Norris. That's why I thought the chance would be there, because he's just dropped not only out of DRS range, but getting a slightly lesser slipstream, with Bottas similar distance back to what he was, just 6/10 away into the final corner. But Perez obviously doing a good enough final corner, getting on the throttle soon enough, and not under any huge threat into turn 1, but still Bottas putting on the pressure.
Closing stages of the Italian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton collided, hit each other earlier on today while they were fighting for third place, and both are out of the race, meaning it's a McLaren 1-2 at the moment, with Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Lando Norris after the two championship contenders collided on lap 26. And make sure you get the Checker Flag podcast later on today, available from wherever you get your podcasts, or on BBC Sounds 5 Live Formula 1 for all the reaction. And hopefully we will be hearing from Verstappen and Hamilton as well on their thoughts on the incident. As it stands, Verstappen, his lead at the top of the championship, will remain at 5 points. And just when Emma Raducanu's weekend couldn't get any better, her favourite driver looks set to win the Italian Grand Prix out of absolutely nowhere. Great day for Daniel Ricciardo, this and McLaren so far. Jolyon Palmer, the former Renault F1 driver, is alongside me, Jack Nicholls, and Jenny Gow.
There will be people everywhere, Jack, just shouting at their radios, going, don't say it yet, not yet, don't jinx it. But just having a look at Valtteri Bottas, he's got a little bit of slip on his rear wheels at the moment. Now, he's done 20 laps by my records on his medium set of tyres. And I just wonder, Daniel Ricciardo came in after 22 laps. I just wonder if they're starting to not perform at their best anymore.
Quite a few of those laps were under safety car, though, weren't they, when he pitted under safety car for the Hamilton-Verstappen crash. And when you're under safety car, you're putting very little stress through the tyres, so it eases. That was probably a good 5 or 6 laps. So I think he's going to be fine. Also, the later in the race, you're running a lower fuel load, and that's putting less stress on the tyres as well. So Bottas still 1 second away from Perez. It's the lockups as much as anything that's going to be giving him a problem, but he's still the one in the top 6. They're all line astern, really. 1.5 seconds the two McLarens are separated by, another 1.5 back to Perez, then it's 1 second to Bottas, 1.5 to Leclerc, and 1 second to Sainz. That's the top 6, the biggest gap of which is 1.5 seconds. I mean, they're really running in one long train, but of those, it does still look like Bottas, who is the fastest man and the most likely to make a move.
Has the fastest lap of the Grand Prix at the moment, Valtteri Bottas, which would be an extra point for him. And Ricciardo is leading, Norris is second, 1.5 seconds between them, lap 48 of 53. So very much into the closing stages, with just 6 laps to go and about 1.5 minutes a lap. So the final, 15 minutes or so of the race, 10 minutes or so of the Grand Prix. And Daniel Ricciardo is leading. Perez on the radio for Red Bull saying the vibrations are increasing, presumably referring to his tyres that Jolyon was just talking about, as he swings into the left-hander of the Ascari. It then runs right and then spits him out left again onto the back straight up towards the Curva Alboreto, when they once again hit 200 miles an hour, the fastest track on the calendar, this, in terms of average speed. And the cars swing into the right-hander at the Alboreto curve once more. Verstappen and Hamilton collided, took each other out of the Grand Prix, and we've got 5 laps to go. Daniel Ricciardo is leading, Norris is second, as McLaren look for their first 1-2 in 11 years. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at the driver standings, if it finishes like this, obviously Verstappen and Hamilton will still be separated by the 5 points, seeing as neither of them would score anything. Bottas in third place on 139, and then he's back to Norris in fourth place on 132 points. That would be a top 4, so no huge movement there, but obviously a whole bounty of points available for McLaren if it finishes like this. So they're looking very positive at the moment.
Lap 49 and 53. Ricciardo ahead of Norris with Perez in third. And Bottas just hasn't been able to make the progress on Perez. Good job today, Valtteri Bottas. Well, in fact, this weekend might be one of his best weekends in Formula One.
I think it could be. Out-qualified Lewis Hamilton over 1 lap. Only had 1 shot in Q3 as well with a slipstream, and managed to hook it up for the front of the grid for the sprint. Led the sprint from start to finish, but took an engine penalty, which meant he started from the back for the Grand Prix today. Scythed his way through quickly into the top 10. Some decent overtakes in a car that is very quick, but he still managed to go through and force, actually, the fact that Bottas was coming through so quickly, forced the leaders to pit and kicked off all the shenanigans with Hamilton and Verstappen then. And now he's in a podium place, and he's still gunning for Sergio Perez.
Down the start, finish straight towards the Rettifilo, and he is still just a little bit too far back. He's closer this lap than he was last time, Valtteri Bottas, in 4th position. Trying to get ahead of Sergio Perez. They come through the right, then come through the left, and then get back on the power again. And he's not going to be close enough this time around. So it's half-time at the City Ground. Naz.
Nottingham Forest 1, Cardiff 0. Lewis Graben's goal separating the 2 sides. Cardiff earlier through Joel Bagan hit the bar from close range. Nottingham Forest 1, Cardiff City 0.
Thank you very much. We'll keep you up to date with the second half, of course, as we then look forward to Leeds versus Liverpool at 4:30.
All we've got.
And Sergio Perez being told to give it all you've got.
Because the McLarens are picking up the pace slightly. We heard Lando Norris being told that Ricciardo is going to give it full beans to the end. Their car is quite quick around this circuit, and they're now in full cry out front, just hammering it to the end to make sure they're not overtaken by Perez, to protect their 1-2. But it is meaning that Perez now has a chance to give the most in his Red Bull, and he's just starting to get close to that 5-second penalty, meaning he'll be ahead of Carlos Sainz at the end, because the gaps are extending from Bottas to the 2 Ferraris. So there's a chance there for Perez. 3 laps to go, and it's becoming more fruitless now, the Bottas attack on Perez, because it's meaningless for him to pass Perez unless he can go on and pass Norris. He's going to finish 3rd, whatever, at the moment, because of Perez's 5-second penalty. There's no need for him to take a risk unless he thinks he can pass Norris. He's not passing Norris at this stage. The McLarens are now too far ahead, and there's too few laps to go, surely.
What a result this is looking set to be for the McLaren team, based in Woking, looking for their first 1-2 in 11 years. Naturally, front runners before, haven't been for a decent amount of time. They've got closer and closer towards the front of the order again. In fact, in 1988, they won 15 out of the 16 Grand Prix that year in their most dominant season. The one Grand Prix they didn't win that year was the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, after Ayrton Senna collided with a backmarking Williams of Jean-Louis Schlesser with 2 laps to go. And that particular little hole in history will feel a little more filled in for McLaren this afternoon as they come down towards the Curva Alboreto again, with Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Lando Norris by 1.5 seconds, and they are looking set to bring it home with Perez in 3rd in the Red Bull, but with a 5-second time penalty, so it will be Valtteri Bottas on the podium if it finishes like this. Just 2 laps to go now for Daniel Ricciardo out in front. And you have to feel a little sorry for Lando Norris, don't you? He's been maybe the driver of the season, certainly a superb driver, easily the quickest driver in the McLaren, but yet when the chance comes to win the Grand Prix, it's Daniel Ricciardo there. Norris has never won a race before.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. It must be... What a fantastic result this is going to be, and this will be Norris's best ever result in Formula One if he can get over the next just under 2 laps in second place. But your teammate winning it is just a little bit gutting when you've been ahead of him consistently all season long. And for Norris, he out-qualified Ricciardo again on Friday, lost that place at the start yesterday at the sprint, and since then he's just been following him round basically, and unable to pass. Ricciardo, I'm chuffed for Daniel Ricciardo at the moment. When McLaren finally have a car that can win a race, he's back there. Oh, this is going to be absolutely huge for him after a really, really poor first part of his season with McLaren. Finally able to deliver a more Daniel Ricciardo-esque performance, but it's going to hurt a little bit for Lando Norris to see his teammate pick up the first win when he's been by far the stronger of the two drivers all season, and this weekend he was the quicker one on Friday, but just those race starts for Ricciardo have been killer, and there's been 2 of them this time. He gained places at the sprint, and he gained that crucial pass on Max Verstappen at the start of this Grand Prix.
Daniel Ricciardo, the Australian, looking for his 9th Grand Prix victory as he comes across the line to start the final lap of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Another chapter in the battle between Hamilton and Verstappen. They collided once again. Neither of them are going to finish this race. It's opened the door for the McLaren team, the mechanics of whom are already climbing up the fencing on the pit wall to hang over it and cheer their cars home. They've got another minute or so before the cars arrive, but Daniel Ricciardo looks set to take his 9th Grand Prix victory. It's a really feel-good day for Formula One in terms of McLaren, in terms of seeing the famous team back at the front of Formula One races. Okay, it's come through a bit of good fortune because of Verstappen and Hamilton colliding, but Ricciardo was in the lead of the Grand Prix anyway.
And Norris was ahead of those 2 anyway. They were 1-2.
Yeah.
They crashed out of 3rd place, man.
Ricciardo swings through the left at the Ascari chicane, then it goes right, then it goes left again, and it's just one more straight before the final corner for Daniel Ricciardo. Really strong drive, made up places in the sprint yesterday. The crowd are on their feet. One of the most popular men in the paddock is coming through the final corner. The checkered flag is waiting. Verstappen and Hamilton crash out again, but Daniel Ricciardo is not going to care one bit because he wins for the first time for McLaren. McLaren get their first 1-2 in 11 years. And it's an absolutely superb day for Ricciardo, his 9th Formula One win. Lando Norris is pumping his fists in the cockpit. He is a driver that has been brought up almost in this McLaren team. He didn't get the win, but he finishes in 2nd place, and that will mean the world to him. And the crash between Verstappen and Hamilton will overshadow it all ultimately, but it's victory for Ricciardo and McLaren.
Yeah! He won! But he did it! Yeah, boy! Yes!
Daniel Ricciardo and the McLaren team. Unbelievable, shouts Zach Brown, the boss of the squad. A 1-2 for the first time since the Canadian Grand Prix in 2010. A race win since the last Grand Prix of 2012. And Daniel Ricciardo is the man that has delivered it. Norris does look buzzing as well. And I love those radio messages after a win when you can just hear all the chaos. It sounds like it sounds like in Star Wars when they're in the trash compactor, doesn't it? And they're listening in on the radio.
You've lost me on that.
But you know what I mean. The cool people know what I mean.
It's what Formula One racing is all about.
Yeah.
It's pure emotion from a driver that's had a tricky season and put in a splendid weekend through qualifying, a sprint, a Grand Prix. He's dealt with the big dogs, with Lewis Hamilton at the start yesterday, with Max Verstappen at the start today.
Amazing. Strat
Let's go, boys! Woo! Let's go! Vamos! Vamos! Get in there! Let's go! Woo!
Okay, mate.
Yes,
okay.
boys!
Strat.
It doesn't sound like that 2nd place hurts too much for Lando Norris, does it?
No, I was just thinking it might do, but how good is that for the team, that they can have a driver finishing 2nd? He sounds almost as happy as Ricciardo, who's just won the Grand Prix. He's so immersed in McLaren. They've got a great future ahead of them. They've made big inroads this year with back with Mercedes power units, of course. Such a strong Grand Prix from the 2 of them. And a title rivalry, I mean, we can't not talk about that. It's just brewing and brewing and brewing to be one of the intense battles of all time.
Deep down, I knew this was going to come, so thanks for having my back. And for anyone who thought I left, I never left. Just moved aside for a while. Thanks, guys.
Ricciardo pulls into Parc Fermé, just nudges the first place sign that he parks in behind. Can you say, Jenny, the title battle is brewing? It's boiled over twice now.
It's boiled over. I was going to say it's erupted like Vesuvius. And we have still so many more races, 8 more races planned to go. And wow, there is no love lost between Max and Lewis right now, is there? It's daggers, it's all-out war, it's Mercedes, Red Bull, it's a classic year of Formula One. It's brilliant.
This is turning into one of the most intense rivalries in Formula One history, and it's all come to a head this season, but they don't care if they crash into each other now. That's the thing. They'd rather crash into each other than finish behind each other. They've done it twice now, and you can just see it rumbling on still. It's 5 points the difference in the championship. Verstappen leads. Neither of them are scoring today, and the fallout from this, it's going to be dramatic. But regardless of that, they were both behind the McLarens, and Ricciardo and Norris have done terrific jobs this weekend.
Is it Samuel? Daniel Ricciardo hugs Andreas Seidel, the man in charge of the Ferrari, the McLaren team, and then Zach Brown, the big boss overall at McLaren, and then leaps into his mechanics. They're all smacking him on his helmeted head.
This is what they expected when they signed Daniel Ricciardo this year. This is what they expected. A proven race winner, 7 Grand Prix wins to his name at Red Bull, podiums a few times last year for Renault. But he's been hiding, as he said himself. He's been away for a little while, and he's just come back with a more typical Ricciardo performance.
Lando Norris embracing the team as well. That Verstappen-Hamilton collision, is it less controversial than the Silverstone one?
Well, the speed is lower, which I think makes it... yeah, it is, basically. The speed is lower, and they both didn't finish. If Hamilton was in the wall with Verstappen at Silverstone, then it's a similar thing. If the speed of the corner was lower as well, and Verstappen didn't have to go to the hospital for a checkup afterwards, it's a similar... The incident itself is similar, but when they're both out and neither of them are scoring, then it's less controversial. It was big controversy at Silverstone because Hamilton was deemed the aggressor and he won the race whilst Verstappen scored nothing. To be honest, I'd say maybe Verstappen this time was the more aggressive one. And if you were apportioning absolutely not 50-50, you'd say maybe 55 to Verstappen in this case. But it's, for me, in the realm of a racing incident, like Silverstone was as well. They're both out. I think you can't say fairer than that, really, when they're both sort of having a coming together like that, and after Silverstone as well.
So Daniel Ricciardo embracing Zach Brown, who appears to be on FaceTime to someone on a video call on his mobile phone. What a Grand Prix that was. We're going to hear from our top 3 in a moment. Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris and Valtteri Bottas, the top 3. 4th for Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. 5th for Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. 6th is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Stroll, Alonso, Russell and Ocon, the rest of the top 10. Let's go down to David Coulthard, who is speaking to the 3rd place man, Valtteri Bottas.
Valtteri, not a bad weekend for you. First in the sprint race yesterday, 3rd today from the back of the grid. Talk us through the race.
Yeah, I mean, starting from the back, it's never easy, and I told the team that I'm going to be on the podium today, so we did. So I'm glad we could get more points than Red Bull, and yeah, I think otherwise we maximized from where I started, and obviously shame with the crash with Lewis and Max, we lost some points there, but from my side, yeah, it was good fun.
Did you mentioned that crash? Did you see it at all on the big screens?
I didn't see really what happened. So.
Okay, well, I think I'll be curious to hear your opinion after it, because it's been wheel to wheel with those guys all the time. But focusing on your race, we now go to Russia. Actually, we've got a replay here for you if you want to see it for the first time. Classic down the inside that becomes a bit messy as they took the second one. Any initial comments?
I mean, I don't know. It's unfortunate.
I understand it takes the time to digest that, but this debate will go on for some time. Ahead of going into the next Grand Prix, I guess you just focus on finishing out your career in Mercedes with the best results.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's a strong weekend from my side. Pace has been good, so it will be nice to have 1 week of rest, and then we go again.
Okay, thank you, Valtteri. Congratulations. Lando, congratulations, big smile, very important day for McLaren. And you know, amazingly, McLaren are the only team to get a 1-2 this season.
Yeah.
So I know you would have preferred that you were winning it, but this is a big, big moment for the team and your journey with them.
Cheers. Yeah, first of all, big thanks to everyone, all of the fans, all the team. We've had a pretty awesome weekend. So I don't know, I guess 4 years ago I joined the team. We always we've been working towards this, and we got a 1-2 finally. So yeah, a good step for us. I'm happy for, of course, Daniel getting the win and me in P2. So just happy for the team.
Well, that's great, but you are a racer, and we did hear you on the radio giving Daniel the hurry up. Was it a moment where you were hoping that maybe it could be like earlier in the year in Imola, where Daniel, moved to one side and you could have came through for the victory?
Of course. Yeah, you've been in that position before where you want to go for it, but I'm also here for the long term. I'm here for the team, and yeah, I don't know, it could have ended up like the other two ended up. So I'm just happy. I'm happy finishing second. I'm happy for Daniel in first place. I love my chance in the future, so all good.
Very mature, Lando. Fantastic. Congratulations. And finally, if we can disturb the man from down under for a moment, Daniel Ricciardo, you're a winner again.
Can I swear? I want to swear.
No, you can't swear.
About time.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, wow. Yeah, I tried to soak.
This was crucial. This is where it really happened for you at the start. Talk us through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it worked well for me yesterday, and I knew, to be honest, even if we got the start, it was never a guarantee would lead the whole race, but was able just to hold firm out front the first stint, and I don't think we had mega speed, but it was enough just to keep obviously Max behind, and then I don't know, there was safety cars, there was this and that, but to lead literally from start to finish, I don't think any of us expected that, but I don't know, there was something in me on Friday. I knew something good was to come, so let's just say that.
Well, whatever that was in you on Friday, you want to keep that for the next events, because this is a big day of celebration for you as a driver at McLaren, for McLaren as a team on the way back. But we've been waiting for you to show this kind of pace and performance. So put us in that car. The last couple of races have been strong for you.
Yeah, I've just been a sandbagging SOB the whole year. That's all. I mean, thirds, fourths, fifths, you might as well just win. So that's what I did. I honestly, the August break was good just to reset. So I felt better the last 3 weekends, and I mean, yeah, to not only win but to get a 1-2, it's insane. For McLaren to be on the podium, it's huge. Let alone 1-2. So this is for Team Papaya. I'm for once lost for words.
Well, look, if you can't have a Ferrari victory for the Tifosi, you have your Italian roots. So a little word to the Italian fans here.
Yeah, ho visto Charles in secondo posto e ho pensavo forse una... Oh,
I actually didn't realise you spoke Italian. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll give the crowd what they want. Pensavo c'era una Ferrari sulla podio oggi, ma ok, comunque spero un nome italiano abbastanza bene. Grazie mille. Saluto mio. Mamma e Papa.
Well, thank you for that. I have no idea, but I imagine it was all good. Right, you need to get your shoe off because we're going to see the shoe on the podium.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to leave.
Go and enjoy it, Daniel.
I don't know what to say.
Go and enjoy it. Congratulations.
Well, a speechless Daniel Ricciardo. It doesn't happen very often, but his first win since Monaco 28, his first win for McLaren, and what a joyous day for Formula One. So many talking points. Can't wait to get stuck into it all with the Checkered Flag podcast later on with Jack and Jolyon. But Steve Crossman, we were worried it was going to be a ball fest, a snore fest. Anything but, wasn't it? It was great.
Told you nothing had happened.
We weren't worried. Steve was worried. He was the one who said nothing was going to happen.
The evidence is in your own podcast, guys. So let's.
We judged on yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. That was brilliant. Daniel Ricciardo's obviously a very popular winner. Anyone who's watched Drive to Survive, of which he's the very early focus, I'm sure will have enjoyed that. But look, we need to talk about what happened between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Jolyon, I'm sure you'll have seen the replays both during the race and now. What has the halo done for Lewis Hamilton there? Without the halo, how serious is that? It could have been very serious, to be honest. It's the actual impact speed is in the slowest part of the whole circuit where they've come together. But I think because Verstappen was already bouncing slightly over the curb, when he hit Hamilton, it lifted his car up and right up and over the cockpit where the halo is, the device that came on a couple of years ago to protect the driver's head. It's really, really strong, and it appears to have taken a lot of the weight of Verstappen's car. It's between the halo and the roll hoop, and that's where Lewis was basically sitting underneath Max's car. There's going to be a massive investigation, and it looks like it's really paid its dues today. It almost, just watching a super slow-mo replay, Jack, which I've just done, it does kind of make you shudder a little bit to think if it wasn't there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and we'll wait to hear from Hamilton, but it looks as though Verstappen's wheel maybe hit Hamilton on the head. It was that sort of close, and you see Hamilton's head kind of go down. So yeah, it was a nasty moment on that front. But Formula One is always pushing for improved safety, and this is the latest sort of in a long line of safety improvements that it's made since the 60s, really.
So what Verstappen said on the team radio, Jolyon, immediately afterwards, that's what you get for not moving over. So who's in the right? Can you see from the replay who's in the right or not? They both could have avoided it. For me, Verstappen is the more aggressive. He's going for the move. It's do or die at that moment for Verstappen, because he had a very slow pit stop. Hamilton tried to cover him off, but had his own slow pit stop that left them coming together into turn one. And if Max didn't pass Lewis at that point, he's not going to beat him probably. So he knew he had to go for it. He was squeezed right to the outside and basically refused to back down. But Hamilton didn't give him really a lot of space into the second part of the chicane. Max was sort of forced over the curb, bounced into Lewis. Verstappen is the more aggressive, but I think they both could have avoided it. And for me, it's a racing incident.
And I think Jolyon and I definitely both believe that, like, you don't there doesn't have to be blame for every crash. You know, we're not here for insurance purposes. You know, we want to see these racing drivers going wheel to wheel on the track, and that's the fun of motor racing. That's the excitement of motor racing, and the excitement is they might crash because they're that close, going that fast. That's sort of the whole purpose of motor racing. So you don't have to have a blame every time, I don't think.
It was kind of like both drivers, they're fighting for the title and they're giving no inch. That's the thing. And they honestly, they'd rather crash now than finish behind their rival. It's come to that. This is so close, this championship battle. Still just 5 points in it. They've already crashed. There's no love lost there, and they just will not accept being beaten by the other one if they could possibly avoid it. Ginormous grin on the face of Daniel Ricciardo as he stands on top of the podium in Monza. Wonder how Lewis Hamilton feels. Let's hear from him. He's been speaking to Lawrence Barretto.
Hey Lewis. Hi. Firstly, are you okay?
Yeah, a little bit stiff, but my neck is a bit, took a bit of a whack on the head.
I'm sorry. It looked like you gave him space heading into that corner. You'd fought really well to put yourself in it at that point. You came out, looked like you got ahead. Talk me through what happened then.
Yeah, well, we were obviously just ahead. We had a bit of a slow stop, but came out, braking into turn one. I made sure I left a car's whip on the outside, and I was ahead going into the corner. And next thing I know, I guess Max went over the second curb or something like that. He obviously knew at that point he wasn't going to make the corner, and he drove into me. So and next thing you know, it's just on top of me. So definitely unfortunate, and we'll speak to the stewards after this, I'm sure.
Did you think for one point you might be able to get the car out? Is that why you stayed, and or were you not feeling great inside?
I wasn't feeling great, but I was just hopeful to get the car going, but the car was destroyed, so it wouldn't have made any difference anyways, but yeah.
Lewis Hamilton, as both of you said, you know, this has reached boiling point. Are we at a stage now where any kind of sort of pretense of politeness goes out the window, or do you think they'll both still be quite careful, quite guarded?
I think they're still going to say the right things. I think in that discussion that you heard there with Hamilton, he's still kind of not fully launching into Verstappen and getting that sort of war of words necessarily, but on track now, you know, every time. I thought, when going into that corner, I didn't think they would crash. It didn't feel to me like they were going to crash. I was surprised when they crashed. Silverstone, I wasn't surprised. So I don't know why that is, but that's how I felt.
But I didn't think either of them were going to back down either, and they went into the corner side by side. So you are surprised when they crash, because it doesn't happen very often, you know, traditionally crashes like that in Formula One. But this is a time where both drivers are fighting so hard, and they're accepting of a crash than backing out of a manoeuvre.
Is this like Senna Prost all over again, when we saw almost collusion, skullduggery, that sort of nastiness? Are we going to get towards the end of the season and go all over again for that?
You know what was interesting was Verstappen's radio immediately afterwards. There was no remorse. There was no sorry to the team. There was no it's Lewis's fault. It was there was none of that really. It was all just that's what you get when you don't leave the space. It was almost like it was the comments of retribution, really, from Verstappen. I don't think he drove like that intentionally, but it certainly takes you into the mindset of someone who knows he's not backing down if there's a 50-50 or even a slight chance of getting up the inside.
Jack, I understood your mid-race Star Wars reference, don't worry.
Thank you. At least someone did.
Yeah, all one of us. Thanks very much, guys. Jack Nicholls, Jolyon Palmer, Jenny Gow, they'll be with you for the Checkered Flag podcast. All of the reaction to an incredible race won by Daniel Ricciardo, who's currently being drenched by his McLaren teammate Lando Norris with the champagne, which, as promised, he is drinking out of a shoe.